Greetings, cozy knights. Lower your swords and rest by the fire. Tonight, we journey through the hidden corners of Skyrim's greatest cities, where secrets wait in shadow and stone. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're listening from tonight and what games you want me to cover next, and subscribe if this helps you sleep. Whiterun's hidden treasury. Beneath the Jorvaska Mead Hall lies a secret compartment that most players never discover. Hidden behind a false stone in the living quarters, there's a small cache containing ancient companion artifacts from the Order's founding. The cache includes a fragment of Ysgramor's original blade, carefully preserved and wrapped in treated cloth. According to the journals nearby, this piece was broken off during a battle with the elves and saved as a relic. The companions keep it hidden because revealing its existence would attract thieves and challenge their public narrative about Ysgramor's intact legacy. Only the Circle knows about this compartment, passed down through generations of leaders. The hiding spot is cleverly designed, using a pressure plate mechanism that responds only to a specific weight, preventing accidental discovery. If you know where to look and what to press, you can access this piece of history that predates most of Skyrim's current settlements. The Dragon's Reach Throne Secret. Jarl Balgruf's throne in Dragon's Reach contains a hidden escape mechanism. Built during the First Era, when Jarls faced constant assassination attempts, the throne has a lever concealed in the left armrest that opens a passage behind the seat. This passage leads down through the mountain to a cave system that emerges near the Western Watchtower. The mechanism is maintained quarterly by trusted guards, ensuring it remains functional in case of emergency. Historical records mention 3 occasions when Jarls used this escape route during coups and sieges. The throne's construction includes counterweights and silent hinges, allowing the passage to open without noise that might alert attackers. Few people in modern Whiterun know about this feature, with knowledge limited to the Jarl, the Steward, and perhaps 1 or 2 senior guards. The passage itself is stocked with emergency supplies, water, and weapons, enough to sustain someone for several days if they needed to hide or plan their next move. Belethor's underground extension. Belethor's general goods has a basement that extends much farther than the visible storage area suggests. Behind a false wall in the cellar, accessible through a concealed door, there's an entire secondary basement used for storing contraband. This space connects via tunnel to the city's drainage system, allowing discreet nighttime deliveries and removals. The tunnel was built by previous owners, but Belethor discovered and maintained it, using it for his less legal operations. City records showed the building's original construction included these tunnels as part of Whiterun's emergency evacuation infrastructure, but they were abandoned and forgotten by officials. Belethor stocks this hidden area with stolen goods, black market items, and merchandise too valuable or questionable to display openly. The walls are reinforced with soundproofing materials to prevent noise from reaching neighboring properties. A careful observer might notice that Belethor's inventory sometimes includes items matching descriptions from recent theft reports, but the evidence remains safely hidden beneath the city streets. The Gildergreen's ancient roots. The dead Gildergreen tree in Whiterun's Wind District has roots that extend impossibly deep, reaching ancient caverns beneath the city. These roots connect to a network of underground chambers predating Whiterun's founding, remnants of a forest that once covered this region. The caverns contain preserved seeds, fossilized leaves, and evidence of nature worship from pre-Nordic inhabitants. Scholars theorize these caves were sacred to the original settlers, possibly snow elves who venerated the natural world. The Gildergreen itself is over 3,000 years old, making it one of Skyrim's oldest living things until its recent death. Its roots absorbed minerals and magic from the deep earth, which explains the tree's sacred significance to Kinnereth worshippers. Even dead, the roots continue drawing trace amounts of energy, creating a faint magical resonance detectable by skilled mages. If the tree is replaced with a sapling from the Eldergleam Sanctuary, the new growth connects with these ancient roots, accessing the accumulated magical essence stored in the earth. This makes the temple grounds slightly more conducive to restoration magic, though the effect is subtle enough that most people never notice the difference in healing potency. Heimska's hidden shrine. The Talos priest's home contains a concealed shrine to all the 9 divines, not just Talos, behind a bookshelf in his house, accessible only by removing specific books in the correct order. There's a small chapel with icons representing each divine. This reveals Heimska's theological complexity beyond his public zealotry. He worships Talos most vocally because that's what's forbidden, but privately, he maintains devotion to all divines, understanding their interconnected nature. The shrine includes rare prayer books from the Third Era, when worship was less politically complicated. Heimska's public performance as extreme Talos fanatic is partially theatre, designed to draw attention and make authorities uncomfortable while protecting his broader faith practice. The books he uses to unlock the shrine are religious texts with specific weights, requiring intimate knowledge of theology to know which ones to remove. His loud preaching serves dual purpose, spreading Talos worship and covering noise from his nightly prayers to the other divines, which he conducts behind the Force wall where neighbors can't hear. The Battleborn and Greymane Underground War. Beneath both family estates, there are tunnels that nearly intersect, remnants of an ancient feud attempt that ended in architectural stalemate. Both families simultaneously tried to tunnel under each other's properties during a particularly bitter dispute in the Second Era. The tunnels were meant to allow sabotage or spying, but stopped mere feet apart when both families realized the danger of cave-ins. Rather than fill them in and potentially alert the other family, both sides simply sealed their tunnels and kept quiet about the failed scheme. These sealed passages still exist, filled with abandoned mining equipment and documents detailing the original paranoid plans. Family members on both sides know about these tunnels through oral tradition, but discussing them is taboo because it reveals how petty their ancestors' rivalry became. The near collision point between the tunnels has become a symbolic reminder that their feud almost literally brought both houses down. Occasionally, younger family members explore these passages out of curiosity, finding personal effects and letters that humanize the historical antagonism between Battleborns and Greymanes. Arcadia's Cauldron's secret ingredient. Arcadia's potions are notably more effective than standard alchemy because she uses water from a secret spring beneath her shop. The spring was discovered when the building's foundation was laid, revealing an underground water source with unusual mineral properties. This water enhances alchemical reactions, making potions approximately 15% more potent than those made with ordinary water. Arcadia keeps this advantage secret, knowing it's the reason customers prefer her potions over competitors. The spring's mineral composition includes trace amounts of magical elements that naturally occur in Skyrim's volcanic geology. She bottles this water carefully, using it exclusively for her premium potion lines while using regular water for cheaper products. The shop's layout deliberately places the brewing area over the spring's strongest flow point, with copper pipes drawing water directly from below. Arcadia's master taught her about the spring's properties and made her swear to keep it secret, fearing that revealing the source would lead to competition or attempts to steal the water. The spring produces limited volume, enough for her shop but not for mass production, making her business model dependent on exclusive access. The Bannered Mare's gambling den. The inn has a secret backroom accessed through the kitchen that functions as an illegal gambling establishment. Hulda runs this operation quietly, taking a percentage of all bets placed. The room operates during specific night hours, serving regulars who know the schedule. Games include dice, cards, and occasionally pit fights in the basement below. The gambling den generates more income than the legitimate inn business, allowing Hulda to maintain her property and deal with threats like Isolde's attempts to buy her out. City guards know about the operation but receive payments to ignore it, creating a corrupt ecosystem. The back room has reinforced doors and the escape hatch leading to the drainage system in case of raids. Hulda screens new customers carefully, requiring references from trusted patrons before allowing access. The gambling attracts merchants, guards, and even nobles who enjoy the thrill of illegal wagering. Winnings from this room have funded various secret projects throughout Whiterun, including bribes, blackmail payments, and property acquisitions. The operation runs smoothly because it serves powerful people who have vested interest in its continued existence. Isolde's Skooma Network Hub. Isolde's house contains detailed maps and ledgers documenting her entire skooma distribution operation. Hidden in a locked chest beneath her bed, these documents reveal connections to Khajiit caravans, corrupt guards, and dealers across Skyrim. The maps mark delivery routes, safe houses, and locations where authorities have been bribed. Her network is sophisticated, using the merchant caravans as cover while moving product between cities. The ledgers show surprising profits, explaining how Isolde could afford to buy the Bannered Mare despite being a market vendor. She records everything meticulously, including names of buyers, amounts sold, and prices charged, creating a document that would be devastating if discovered by honest authorities. Her connections extend to Riften's Thieves Guild and various bandit groups who provide protection for shipments. The chest also contains correspondence with her deceased partner Ulag, discussing expansion plans and new smuggling techniques. Isolde's operation is built on relationships and information, knowing who to pay and who to avoid. Her public persona as cheerful merchant completely masks her role as one of Skyrim's major drug distributors. The Companion's Blood Oath Vault. Deep beneath Jorvaska, past the living quarters, and through a concealed passage, there's a vault containing blood samples from every companion who underwent the beast blood ritual. The Circle maintains this vault as insurance and historical record, storing vials dating back centuries. Each sample is labeled with the companion's name and date of transformation, creating a genealogy of lycanthropy within the Order. The vault exists for two purposes: magical research into curing the condition, and as potential blackmail against former members who might betray the Circle. The samples retain their power indefinitely, preserved through ancient Nord magic that prevents degradation. If someone hostile gained access to these samples, they could theoretically control or curse every living werewolf companion. The vault's security includes magical wards, trapped mechanisms, and a door that only opens for Circle members who speak the ancient oath. Beyond the blood, samples, The vault contains journals from companions describing their transformations, struggles with beast nature, and philosophical reflections on what they sacrificed for power. These writings reveal the psychological toll of lycanthropy that public companion legends gloss over. War Maiden's Forge Secret Chamber. Behind Yorlan Greymane's Skyforge, there's a small chamber carved into the rock containing prototype Skyforge steel weapons from failed experiments. These weapons represent Yorlan's attempts to improve the legendary smithing technique, innovations that didn't quite work but contain interesting properties. Some weapons are too brittle, others too heavy, but all demonstrate advanced metallurgical understanding. Yorlan keeps them hidden, because admitting to failed experiments might damage the Skyforge's mystical reputation. The chamber also contains his personal journal, documenting the Skyforge's secrets, knowledge passed down through generations of Greymane smiths. He writes about the forge's magical properties, how the heat comes from something deep beneath the earth, possibly related to Whiterun's founding. The journal mentions that the Skyforge occasionally produces weapons of exceptional quality beyond normal explanation, suggesting the forge itself has some form of consciousness or connection to ancient magic. Yorlan theorizes the forge was created by beings who understood metallurgy at a divine level, possibly the ancient Nords who built the city, or something even older. These failed experiments and speculative writings reveal the Skyforge as something stranger and older than a simple magical furnace. The Dragon's Reach Dungeon's secret prisoner. In the deepest cell of Dragon's Reach's dungeon, behind a walled-off section, there's a prisoner who's been forgotten by everyone except the oldest guards. This prisoner, whose name has been lost to records, was imprisoned during Jarl Vignar's grandfather's reign for a crime so shameful it was erased from history. The sealed section contains a single cell with a bed, a desk, and books, suggesting long-term imprisonment rather than execution. Food is delivered through a slot by guards who don't know or won't say who they're feeding. The prisoner has been there so long that they might have died, but the meals continue disappearing, suggesting someone or something still lives behind that wall. Theories among the guards range from an immortal mage to a vampire to a political prisoner whose family paid for indefinite detention instead of death. The wall blocking the passage was built with specific instructions that it never be removed, except by direct order of the High King, an order that has never come. Documents from the period reference the shame of Dragon's Reach, but provide no details, only dire warnings about maintaining security. Whatever or whoever is behind that wall represents a secret the city's leadership decided was too dangerous to reveal or resolve, choosing instead to let time solve the problem through death or madness. Solitude's hidden execution records. In Castle Door's archives, there's a secret section containing records of unofficial executions carried out without public ceremony. These documents detail political murders disguised as legal justice, including names of people killed to silence them. The records go back decades, showing a pattern of empire eliminating troublesome individuals who knew too much or threatened important people. Each entry includes the victim's name, their supposed crime, the actual reason for execution, and who ordered it. Many entries reference interrogations conducted in secret chambers beneath the castle, where prisoners were tortured for information before being quietly disposed of. These records exist as insurance for military commanders, proof they were following orders if they're ever accused of murder. The documents are kept in a locked section that requires both the general's key and the legate's key simultaneously, preventing solo access. If these records were exposed, They'd reveal systemic corruption within Solitude's justice system and potentially implicate high-ranking imperial officials. The most damning entries involve executions of witnesses to imperial crimes, journalists who investigated corruption, and nobles who opposed specific policies. Each file is meticulously maintained, suggesting someone wants these records preserved either for future blackmail or for historical truth that might eventually surface. The Blue Palace's spy network. Behind the throne room in the Blue Palace, accessible through Sibyl Stentor's chambers, there's a room containing an intelligence network's operations center. Maps on the walls mark Stormcloak positions, Thalmor movements, and locations of potential threats. The room is staffed by agents who never appear in public, career spies who coordinate information gathering across Skyrim. Files on shelves contain dossiers on important figures, including Ulfric Stormcloak, various jarls, and wealthy merchants. The intelligence operation predates the Civil War, originally created to monitor foreign threats, but expanded to watch domestic opposition. Sibyl oversees this network as part of her court mage duties, using her vampire longevity to maintain institutional memory. The room has magical wards preventing scrying or detection, keeping its existence hidden from hostile mages. Communication with field agents occurs through coded messages delivered via seemingly innocuous channels, merchants, couriers, and even beggars who work for the network. The operations budget comes from hidden line items in Solitude's finances, disguised as mundane expenses. This spy network gives Solitude significant advantages in political maneuvering, knowing opponents' plans before they execute them. The room's very existence proves the Empire fights the Civil War through information as much as military force. Erica's blackmail collection. The wealthy noble's house contains a safe hidden behind a painting in his private study, filled with compromising documents about Solitude's elite. Letters detailing affairs, financial crimes, illegal deals, and embarrassing secrets create a blackmail library Erica uses to maintain power and influence. He systematically gathered dirt on everyone important in Solitude, ensuring he can control or destroy anyone who opposes him. The collection includes evidence of bribes paid to imperial officials, records of tax evasion by prominent merchants, and personal letters revealing scandalous relationships. Some documents could end careers, others could lead to executions if made public. Erica keeps this collection meticulously organized, with files on each person indexed and cross-referenced. He occasionally reminds people he has information about them, applying pressure to secure favorable votes or business deals. The safe is magically locked with a spell only Erica can dispel, and is rigged with a fire ward that will burn the contents if forcibly opened. His position as one of Solitude's most powerful citizens stems largely from this collection. As even Elisif knows, he possesses information that could destabilize her already fragile authority. The documents represent decades of careful intelligence gathering. Proving Erica's success comes from manipulation rather than merit. The Winking Skeever's smuggling operation. Corpulus. Vinius runs the inn as a front for a smuggling operation that moves goods between Solitude's docks and inland destinations. The cellar has a tunnel connecting to the East Empire Company warehouse, allowing contraband to bypass customs inspections. Items smuggled include weapons for Stormcloak sympathizers, rare poisons, stolen artifacts, and occasionally people fleeing imperial justice. Corpulus takes a cut of every shipment, making far more money than the inn generates legitimately. The tunnel was built during Solitude's founding as part of the city's defensive infrastructure, but was later sealed and forgotten by authorities. Corpulus discovered it during renovations and realized its potential. He maintains relationships with corrupt dock workers who redirect shipments through his operation for a fee. The smuggling network has connections to similar operations in other cities, creating an underground economy parallel to legal trade. Guards who discover the operation are either bribed or threatened with evidence of their own corruption, which Corpulus carefully collects. The inn's steady stream of transient guests provides cover, as no one questions why various people come and go at all hours. This operation represents Solitude's darker economic reality, where illegal trade thrives beneath the surface of imperial order. Radiant Raiment identity laundering service. Tari and Endari don't just sell clothes. They provide complete identity changes for wealthy criminals and fugitives. Their boutique's back room contains wigs, cosmetics, forged documents, and everything needed to create a new persona. They charge exorbitant fees for this service, catering to nobles who need to disappear or criminals who can afford sophisticated identity changes. The sisters learned this trade in Cyrodiil, where they ran a similar operation before the Great War made it too dangerous. Solitude's position as a major port makes it ideal for their business, as clients can arrive by ship and leave as someone else. The forged documents they produce are nearly perfect, including false family histories, fake business licenses, and counterfeit immigration papers. They maintain contacts with officials who will vouch for fabricated identities if questioned. The identity laundering service generates more profit than their boutique, though they keep legitimate clothing sales visible to maintain cover. Their client list includes people fleeing assassination attempts, adulterers escaping angry spouses, and embezzlers who stole fortunes and need new lives. The sisters keep detailed records of every identity they create, using this information as insurance against clients who might consider betraying them. Vittoria Vici's Imperial Intelligence role. The cousin of the Emperor is actually an Imperial Intelligence officer, using her position at the East Empire Company as cover. Her marriage to Asgir Snowshod was arranged to create connections with Stormcloak sympathizing families, allowing her to gather intelligence. Her office contains hidden compartments filled with reports about Windhelm's economy, military preparations, and political movements. She sends coded updates to the Imperial City through seemingly routine business correspondence. Her actual East Empire Company work is competent, but secondary to her intelligence mission. Vittoria knows about smuggling operations, corrupt officials, and criminal networks throughout Solitude, using this information for both company benefit and imperial military advantage. Her forthcoming wedding is designed to strengthen her cover, making her seem like a regular noble focused on family rather than espionage. The assassination that kills her is catastrophic for Imperial intelligence because she's irreplaceable, not just as the Emperor's cousin, but as their most effective operative in Solitude. Her death eliminates years of carefully constructed cover and networks of informants who trusted her personally. The intelligence she gathered has been crucial to Imperial strategy in the Civil War, helping them anticipate Stormcloak moves and exploit weaknesses. Without her, the Empire loses significant advantage in understanding their enemies. Castle Dour's torture chambers. Beneath the castle's public dungeons, there's a level dedicated to enhanced interrogation that officially doesn't exist. These chambers contain implements for torture, soundproofed walls, and cells designed to break prisoners psychologically. Imperial interrogators work here, extracting information from captured Stormcloaks, suspected spies, and political enemies. The torture isn't random cruelty, but systematic information extraction, conducted by trained specialists who understand anatomy and psychology. Records document interrogation sessions in clinical detail, noting which techniques produce results. The chambers have been used on both foreign enemies and imperial citizens, showing the Empire's willingness to use brutal methods against anyone they deem threatening. Some prisoners die from torture, their bodies disposed of secretly to avoid creating martyrs. Others emerge broken, their minds shattered, unable to function in society. The torture chambers represent the Empire's darker methods, the violence hidden beneath claims of civilized rule. Guards assigned to this level are selected for loyalty and moral flexibility, willing to participate in activities that would horrify most soldiers. The existence of these chambers is known to senior military officials, but denied if anyone asks, maintaining plausible deniability. Elisif's secret correspondence. The Jarl maintains hidden correspondence with various factions, including neutral communications with Stormcloak nobles, who she hopes might eventually support reunification. These letters are kept in a magically sealed box in her private chambers, accessible only by her personal key. The correspondence reveals Elisif's political complexity beyond her public role as Imperial loyalist. She writes to Greymane family members in Whiterun, Battleborn elders, and even some of Ulfric's lesser supporters, testing possibilities for peace. Her letters are careful, never directly betraying the Empire, but exploring diplomatic alternatives to continued war. She understands that many Stormcloaks have legitimate grievances about Talos worship and Imperial overreach, acknowledging these concerns in her private correspondence even as she publicly defends Imperial policy. The sealed box also contains letters from Torig, her dead husband, which she reads when grief overwhelms her. His letters discuss his own doubts about the White Gold Concordat and concerns about Thalmor influence, showing he was more conflicted than his public image suggested. Elisif's correspondence proves she's more thoughtful and politically nuanced than her advisors give her credit for, though her inexperience prevents her from acting on these insights effectively. Angeline's aromatic secret garden. Beneath Angeline Morad's shop, there's a garden growing in caverns illuminated by magical lights. This underground space allows her to cultivate rare alchemical ingredients that normally don't grow in Skyrim's climate. The garden includes tropical plants, fungi that require complete darkness, and flowers that bloom only in specific magical conditions. Angeline discovered these caverns when investigating her shop's foundation and realized their potential. She spent years developing this hidden garden, using knowledge from her deceased husband, who was an experienced alchemist. The garden's existence explains how her shop stocks ingredients that shouldn't be available in solitude, giving her competitive advantage over other alchemists. The magical lighting system uses crystals that absorb sunlight from her shop's windows and redirect it underground, creating artificial daylight on a controlled schedule. She's essentially running an advanced agricultural operation in secret, producing ingredients worth small fortunes. The garden also serves as her retreat, a place of beauty and peace where she can remember her husband, who helped design the space before his death. She cultivates some ingredients purely for their beauty rather than utility, maintaining species that would otherwise never survive in Skyrim's harsh environment. The Temple of the Divine's historical library. Behind the public worship area, there's a library containing religious texts from before the White Gold Concordat banned Talos worship. These books document theological arguments for Talos's divinity, historical records of his apotheosis, and philosophical treatises on the nature of divine ascension. The library exists in legal grey area, as the books themselves aren't forbidden, but their message contradicts imperial policy. Priests maintain this collection as scholarly resource, arguing that understanding religious history requires access to all perspectives. The library includes rare manuscripts from the Third Era, some hand-copied by monks who preserved knowledge through political upheavals. Certain texts discuss the relationship between the 9 divines, explaining how Talos's addition to the pantheon affected divine politics and theological understanding. These discussions are academically valuable, but politically dangerous, as they legitimize Talos worship through rational argument, rather than blind faith. The priests allow trusted scholars access to the library, creating informal network of intellectuals who study forbidden theology. This preservation of knowledge represents quiet resistance to the Concordat, maintaining truth even when speaking it publicly brings persecution. The library proves that religious institutions sometimes protect ideas their political masters want destroyed. Jala's house secret tunnel. This seemingly ordinary residence contains a tunnel connecting to the Red Wave, the ship permanently docked in Solitude's harbour. The tunnel was built by smugglers decades ago and has been maintained secretly by successive house owners who use it for various illegal purposes. Currently, the house serves as a safe house for Imperial intelligence operatives who need to enter or leave Solitude without being seen. The tunnel allows agents to board ships without going through the docks, avoiding surveillance. The house's current residents know about the tunnel, but are paid to never mention it, serving as caretakers for an intelligence asset. The tunnel's construction is impressive, with reinforced walls, drainage systems, and ventilation that prevents flooding or suffocation. Maps in the house show additional tunnels branching off, suggesting an entire network beneath Solitude that has been forgotten by most authorities, but remains actively used by those who know about it. The tunnel represents infrastructure from Solitude's chaotic past that continues serving modern purposes, adapted by each generation for current needs. Bits and pieces. Secret forge. Seymour's general store has a hidden forge in the basement where she crafts weapons for customers who can't legally buy them. This includes Stormcloak sympathizers who want weapons without being flagged by Imperial authorities. The forge is small but sufficient for basic weapon production and repair. Seymour learned smithing from her family in Hammerfell before moving to Skyrim, keeping these skills hidden to avoid competing with established smiths and drawing unwanted attention. She uses the forge primarily at night, when the sounds of hammering are less likely to alert neighbors. The weapons she produces are unmarked, lacking the maker's stamps that would identify their origin. This allows her customers to claim they acquired weapons elsewhere if questioned. Seymour charges premium prices for this discretion, making significant income from her underground forge while maintaining her cover as ordinary shopkeeper. She's careful about who she serves, refusing to arm criminals or anyone who might draw guard attention to her operation. The forge's existence has made her popular among Solitude's Stormcloak sympathizers, who see her as ally even though her motivation is purely profit. Proudspire Manor's haunted East Wing. The expensive house available for purchase has an east wing that's sealed off, supposedly due to structural issues. Actually, the wing is haunted by violent spirits that previous owners couldn't exorcise. The ghosts are remnants of a family murdered in the house during the Second Era, victims of political assassination who never found peace. The spirits attack anyone who enters the wing, making it genuinely dangerous. Multiple priests have attempted cleansing rituals without success, suggesting the haunting has unusual power or is connected to something deeper. The sealed wing contains furniture, personal items, and bloodstains from the original murders, preserved because no one can safely enter to clean. Rumors suggest the wing's walls whisper at night, and neighbors report seeing ghostly lights in windows that should be dark. The house's price is actually a bargain because of this haunting, though agents never mention it to potential buyers. Players who purchase Proudspire Manor never gain access to the East Wing, as it remains sealed throughout the game. The haunting represents unresolved trauma, literally embedded in Solitude's architecture. Violence that won't be forgotten or erased despite centuries passing. Windhelm's Grey Quarter Resistance. Beneath the Dunmer district, there's a hidden meeting hall where Dark Elf residents plan resistance against Nord discrimination. This space was excavated secretly over several years, accessed through a concealed entrance in the new Gnesis Corner Club's cellar. The hall contains maps of Windhelm, documents detailing discriminatory incidents, and plans for various responses ranging from legal protests to sabotage. The Dunmer resistance isn't unified, with some members advocating for peaceful change while others support more aggressive tactics. The hall serves as organizing center for Dark Elf community, allowing them to coordinate responses to Nord aggression without Nord authorities knowing. They've compiled evidence of crimes against Dark Elves that guards ignored, creating a record of systematic injustice. The Resistance maintains contact with Dunmer communities in other cities and in Morrowind, part of broader network supporting displaced Dark Elves throughout Tamriel. Some members are veterans of conflicts in Morrowind, bringing military experience to their organizing. The hall represents the Grey Quarter as more than a victim community, showing Dark Elves actively working to improve their situation despite overwhelming odds against them. The Palace of the King's Secret Throne. Beneath Ulfric's throne room, there's another throne carved into solid rock, remnant of ancient Nord kingdom that predates the current city. This throne was used by the original High Kings of Skyrim centuries ago, when Windhelm was the center of Nordic power. The throne room surrounding it has been sealed off and forgotten by most, known only to the oldest scholars and Ulfric himself. Ulfric discovered this ancient throne room during childhood exploration of the palace's lower levels, and the discovery influenced his belief in Nordic destiny and rightful rule. The ancient throne room contains murals depicting legendary high kings, their conquests, and their divine mandate to rule. These images reinforced Ulfric's conviction that Skyrim should be independent, ruled by Nords according to ancient traditions. The throne itself is carved with runes explaining the responsibilities and powers of High Kings, serving as teaching tool for rulers. Ulfric occasionally sits on this ancient throne when making important decisions, drawing inspiration from his predecessors. The sealed throne room represents Windhelm's deep history and Ulfric's connection to that past, his belief that he's continuing traditions interrupted by Empire's conquest of Skyrim. Candlehearth Hall's intelligence network, Elder Early Dawn, runs more than an inn. She operates an intelligence network for the Stormcloaks. Her establishment serves as gathering point for information about Imperial movements, as travelers from across Skyrim stop here and share news. Elder carefully questions guests, extracting information that she compiles and sends to Ulfric's commanders. The inn staff are all Stormcloak sympathizers who help collect intelligence. Conversations in the common room are monitored, with staff noting anything useful. Elder maintains contacts throughout Windhelm, who feed her information about the docks, markets, and political developments. She's essentially running a spy network disguised as ordinary inn operations. The information she gathers has helped Stormcloaks anticipate Imperial strategies and avoid ambushes. Her role is so valuable that Ulfric provides financial support to ensure the inn remains profitable even during economic downturns. Elder's motivation combines patriotic devotion to Stormcloak cause and personal hatred of the Empire, which she blames for her husband's death during the Great War. Her intelligence network proves that the Civil War is fought through information as much as combat, with ordinary citizens becoming crucial assets for military operations. Clan: Shattershield's ruined reputation. The family office contains documents revealing the extent of their business decline following Frigga's murder. Financial records show contracts cancelled, partnerships dissolved, and investments withdrawn as other merchants distance themselves from the cursed family. The Shattershields were once Windhelm's wealthiest merchant clan, controlling significant portions of maritime trade. Following the murder, superstitious business partners severed ties, fearing association with a family marked by tragedy. The documents show desperate attempts to maintain operations as resources dried up. Letters pleading for loan extensions, begging former partners to reconsider, and attempting to explain that Frigga's death was random rather than family curse. The decline has been rapid and severe, with the family losing roughly half their wealth in the months following the murder. Torbjorn works desperately to stop the bleeding, but his grief prevents focused effort. The office represents a business empire collapsing not from poor management, but from society's irrational fear of misfortune, proving that in Skyrim's superstitious culture, tragedy is contagious and ruins more than just those directly affected. The White File's alchemical breakthrough. Neuralion's shop contains notes from his lifetime of research into the legendary White File, revealing that he actually succeeded in creating artificial versions of several miracle potions. His notes document formulas that significantly exceed normal alchemical limits, approaching but not quite matching the file's legendary properties. These breakthrough formulas represent decades of experimentation and theoretical work. Neuralion never commercialized these formulas because his obsession with the White File made him see anything less as failure. His apprentice Quintus will eventually discover these notes, realizing they're sitting on alchemical advances worth fortunes. The formulas include a near-perfect healing potion, a stamina draft that grants temporary superhuman endurance, and a clarity potion that sharpens mental focus beyond normal enhancement magic. If these formulas were shared with the alchemical community, they'd revolutionize potion crafting across Tamriel. But Neuralion's perfectionism and eventual death mean they might remain locked in his shop, unknown to anyone who could use them. The notes represent the tragedy of obsession, how pursuit of impossible perfection can blind someone to the extraordinary achievements they've already accomplished. New Genesis Corner Club's Morrowind connection. The Dark Elf Tavern serves as unofficial embassy for House Redoran, maintaining diplomatic and economic ties between Windhelm's Dunmer and their homeland. The club's back room contains correspondence with Redoran officials in Raven Rock and letters from family members still in Morrowind. Ambaris Rendar, the owner, coordinates relief efforts for refugee Dark Elves, directing resources from Morrowind to those who need them in Skyrim. The club also arranges passage for Dark Elves who want to return home, though few can afford the journey. Documents show that House Redoran sends financial support to Windhelm's Dunmer community, helping them survive Nord discrimination. This aid is carefully concealed because revealing it would anger Nord supremacists who already resent Dark Elf presence. The club represents the Grey Quarter's connection to their cultural homeland, maintaining identity and receiving support despite being separated by sea and circumstance. The Corner Club proves the Dark Elf community isn't isolated or helpless, but part of larger network spanning Tamriel. Brunwolf Free Winter's reform documents. His house contains detailed plans for reforming Windhelm's government and ending discrimination against Dunmer and Argonians. These documents outline specific policy changes, budget allocations, and legal reforms designed to create equality. Brunwolf has spent years developing these plans, knowing he'd need comprehensive strategy if he ever gained power. The plans include establishing an official Dunmer representative on the city council, creating economic development programs for the Grey Quarter, and reforming guard training to eliminate racial bias. They also address Argonian concerns, proposing to integrate them into city proper and end the dock labour exploitation. The documents show sophisticated understanding of political and economic factors maintaining discrimination. Brunwolf recognizes that ending prejudice requires changing power structures, not just asking people to be nicer. If he becomes Jarl, these plans become his governing agenda, though implementing them proves harder than planning them. The documents represent idealism backed by practical thinking, hope tempered by realistic assessment of obstacles. They prove Brunwolf is more than well-meaning liberal. He's a serious reformer with concrete vision for more just Windhelm. House of Clan Cruelsea's slave trade history. Hidden documents in the family office reveal that the Cruelseas made their original fortune through slave trading in Morrowind before slavery was abolished. They owned Dunmer slaves and sold them to other houses, profiting from the practice for decades. When slavery ended, they liquidated their operations and moved to Windhelm, reinvesting slave trade profits into legitimate shipping businesses. The family has worked hard to erase this history, destroying most records and never discussing it publicly. But documents remain carefully hidden, detailing names of slaves they owned, prices they received, and conditions of their operations. If this history were revealed, it would devastate their reputation, especially given Windhelm's current Dunmer population. Some Dark Elves in the Grey Quarter may be descendants of people the Cruel Seas enslaved, adding bitter irony to their current proximity. The hidden documents represent shame the family can never fully escape, original sin that funded their current comfort and respectability. They're evidence that many of Skyrim's honorable Nordic families built wealth through exploitation that they now deny occurred. Viola Giordano's obsessive surveillance. Her house is filled with notes documenting her neighbors' activities in exhausting detail. She records times people arrive and leave, who they meet with, what packages they receive, and any suspicious behavior. Her surveillance has uncovered actual criminal activity, including smuggling operations and affairs, but she has no one to report to who takes her seriously. Guards dismiss her as paranoid, and other citizens avoid her. Her notes would actually be valuable intelligence if anyone bothered reading them. They document patterns of behavior that reveal Windhelm's hidden networks. Her obsession stems from genuine concern about the city's moral decline mixed with compulsive need for control in chaotic world. She's not entirely wrong about corruption and crime in Windhelm, but her methods alienate everyone. Her house represents information gathering without purpose, surveillance without power to act on findings. She's right about problems, but wrong about solutions, making her tragic figure who could have been useful if she'd been taken seriously. Yerim's architectural secrets. Beyond its role as Butcher's murder house, Yerim contains unusual architectural features suggesting it was originally designed for defense or imprisonment. The house has unusually thick walls, iron-reinforced doors, and a cellar that could serve as dungeon. Historical records suggest Yerim was built for a paranoid noble who feared assassination, creating a house that could be defended against attackers or used to hold prisoners. The necromantic altar in the cellar is recent addition, but the room's design indicates it was always intended for something dark. The house has hidden compartments in the walls, possibly for storing weapons or valuables during sieges. Its position near the Palace of the Kings suggests it was meant to serve as fallback defensive position if the palace fell. These architectural features explain why the house sat empty for so long. It's fundamentally unsettling space designed for violence and imprisonment. Even cleaned of the Butcher's influence, Yerim retains its oppressive atmosphere because the architecture itself was built for suffering. Windhelm's Argonian dock exploitation. The Argonian workers live in the assemblage outside city walls, but their economic exploitation is systematically maintained by all of Windhelm's trading companies. Pay scales document that Argonians receive significantly less than human or elf workers for identical labor. They're charged more for housing, food, and supplies, creating debt cycles that keep them trapped. The dock companies coordinate to ensure no Argonian can find better employment elsewhere, creating effective monopoly on their labor. This system is technically legal but morally horrific, stripping Argonians of economic mobility while maximizing profit extraction. Documents in various merchant offices show explicit discussions of keeping Argonian wages low and preventing their integration into city proper. This isn't casual racism, but systematic economic exploitation dressed as business practice. The assemblage exists in permanent economic depression, while wealth flows to Nord and Imperial merchants. The system is self-sustaining, as Argonians lack resources to leave or legal standing to challenge their treatment. This represents capitalism's intersection with racism, showing how economic systems can be designed to exploit specific groups. Riften's Blackbriar Manor Underground. Beneath Maven's mansion, there's an extensive network of storage rooms, meeting chambers, and even prison cells. This underground complex serves as headquarters for her criminal empire, containing ledgers documenting illegal operations, contraband storage, and evidence against anyone who might threaten her. The prison cells have held various enemies over the years, people who opposed Maven and needed to be convinced to stop. Torture equipment in these cells proves Maven's willingness to use extreme methods. The complex includes an escape tunnel leading outside city walls, allowing Maven to flee if her authority is ever seriously challenged. The storage rooms contain stolen goods, black market weapons, and skooma reserves worth fortunes. Meeting chambers host gatherings of Maven's top lieutenants, where they coordinate operations across Skyrim. The underground complex is maintained by trusted servants who would die before revealing its existence. Guards are paid to ignore any sounds or evidence related to the complex. This underground empire proves Maven's power isn't just political influence, but physical infrastructure supporting her criminal operations, a shadow government beneath Riften streets. The Ragged Flagon's historical significance. The Thieves Guild's headquarters is built in ruins from Riften's original founding, centuries older than the current city. The Flagon occupies what was once a temple to a forgotten deity, possibly a precursor to the divines or a Daedric prince no longer widely worshipped. Stone carvings throughout the Ratway show religious iconography that scholars can't fully interpret. The guild occupies sacred space corrupted by crime, though few members know or care about the location's original purpose. The cistern where the guild stores its wealth was a baptismal pool or perhaps a site for ritual sacrifice, repurposed for mundane criminal use. Excavations could reveal more about Riften's pre-Nordic history, but the guild prevents archaeological investigation. The flagon represents Skyrim's tendency to build new civilizations literally on top of old ones, forgetting what came before while unknowingly continuing to use ancient structures. The thieves worship at the altar of Nocturnal in a space that once housed different divinity, unaware they're perpetuating religious function across millennia. The Ratway's forgotten residents. Beyond the bandits and guild members, the Ratway houses a population of people who've lived there for years, creating underground community invisible to surface Riften. These permanent residents include criminals hiding from authorities, addicts who can't survive above, and unfortunates who fell through society's cracks. They've established informal economy based on scavenging, theft, and occasional work for the guild. Children are born in the Ratway, grow up never seeing sunlight, learning to navigate tunnels before they can read. These people have adapted to underground life, developing skills unnecessary on surface, navigating by sound and touch, recognizing safe paths through dangerous areas. They avoid guild members and bandits, knowing underground politics well enough to survive. The guild tolerates them because they serve as early warning system for guard raids and occasionally provide information. This population represents Riften's complete failure to serve its most vulnerable citizens, literally pushing them underground where they can be forgotten. The Ratway residents prove that poverty isn't always visible, that entire communities can exist unnoticed beneath cities' feet. Honeyside's secret dock. The house purchasable in Riften has a private dock accessible through the basement. Hidden entrance allowing boat access without using the main docks. This feature was designed for smuggling, letting previous owners move goods without customs inspections. The dock connects to Lake Honrig's underground waterways, enabling discreet travel to various locations around the lake. Current players who purchase Honeyside rarely discover this dock because it's well concealed behind a false wall in the basement. The dock has been used by various criminals over the years, making Honeyside valuable property for anyone needing secret transport. The Thieves Guild knows about the dock and occasionally uses it with the player's knowledge or without, depending on who owns the house. The dock's existence explains why Honeyside's price is relatively high. It's not just a house, but a functional smuggling asset. Maps in the basement show the underground waterways layout, revealing a network of flooded passages beneath Riften that few people know exists. These passages were originally drainage systems, but have been adapted for criminal purposes. Mistvale Keep's hidden panic room. The Jarl's residence contains a concealed panic room accessible through Layla's bedroom, designed to protect the Jarl during emergencies. The room has independent air supply, reinforced walls, and supplies to sustain someone for several days. It's stocked with food, water, weapons, and communication equipment for summoning help. The panic room was built during Riften's chaotic periods when Jarls faced assassination attempts regularly. Modern Jarls don't use it, but it's maintained in case of crisis. The room's existence reveals the paranoia underlying Nordic leadership. Constant awareness that power makes you a target. Documents in the panic room detail evacuation procedures and contingency plans for various scenarios, from fires to coups to sieges. There's even a tunnel from the panic room to the exterior, allowing the Jarl to escape if the keep is overrun. This escape route emerges outside the city walls, giving the fleeing Jarl a chance to reach allies. The panic room and its associated security measures cost significant resources to maintain, but they represent insurance against the violent unpredictability of Nordic politics. Helga's bunkhouse secret business. Beyond her daytime work running a bunkhouse, Helga operates a high-end escort service using her building as base. Her workers are carefully selected, operate discreetly, and serve wealthy clients who can afford privacy. This business is illegal but tolerated because it serves Riften's elite, including some guards who protect it in exchange for free services. The escort service is sophisticated, with Helga maintaining standards of professionalism and safety for her workers. She screens clients, refuses dangerous individuals, and has enforcers who deal with anyone who harms her workers. The operation generates substantial income, explaining how Helga maintains her property and lifestyle despite bunkhouse work not being particularly profitable. Her devotion to Dibella isn't just religious performance, but genuine belief that sexuality and pleasure are divine gifts to be shared. She sees her escort service as extension of religious practice, though most people view it as simple prostitution. Her ledgers document clients, preferences and prices, creating compromising records she uses as insurance against prosecution. The bunkhouse represents Riften's sex economy operating in grey legal area, neither fully criminal nor fully legitimate. The Bee and Barb's intelligence role, Kirava and Talanjai, run more than a tavern. They gather intelligence for the Argonian community throughout Skyrim. Their position in Riften's center makes them perfectly placed to overhear conversations and observe patterns. They share information with the Argonian assemblage in Windhelm, coordinating efforts to protect Argonian interest across the province. The inn serves as meeting point for Argonian travelers who exchange information about employment opportunities, safe routes, and cities to avoid. Kirava maintains coded correspondence with Argonian leaders in Black Marsh, informing them about conditions in Skyrim. This intelligence network helps Argonians make informed decisions about where to work, which employers to trust, and how to navigate Nordic and imperial politics. The Bee and Barb is essentially an Argonian embassy, operating without official recognition, providing services that benefit the entire Argonian population in Skyrim. Kirava's tough demeanor and Talanjay's friendly nature work together to extract information from diverse sources. They've created a community center that serves their people while appearing to be ordinary inn to outsiders. Temple of Mara's marriage. Records. The temple maintains comprehensive records of every marriage conducted in Riften going back centuries. These records reveal fascinating patterns, including frequent marriages between criminal families creating alliance networks, marriages arranged to legitimize illegitimate children, and even fake marriages designed to provide legal cover for other relationships. The records show that Riften's criminal underworld uses marriage as business tool, binding families together through official channels while conducting illegal activities cooperatively. Some records document marriages conducted under duress, essentially legalized kidnapping where someone was forced to marry to secure their family's debt. Other records show marriages that were annulled within days, suggesting they served temporary legal purposes. The temple priests maintain these records carefully, but don't judge the motivations behind marriages, performing their religious duty regardless of couples' true intentions. The records represent Riften's social history written in marriages. showing how personal relationships intersect with economics, crime, and political power. They prove that even sacred institutions like marriage can be corrupted by the city's pervasive criminal influence. Blackbriar Meadery's secret operation. The Meadery's success comes partly from legitimate quality, but largely from illegal distribution practices and debt-based control of competing businesses. Maven has systematically eliminated competition through intimidation, sabotage, and forced buyouts. Her Meadery's basement contains evidence of these practices, including bottles of competitors' mead that were poisoned to create health scares, destroying their reputations. Files document businesses that owed Maven money and were forced to sell to her at below-market prices when they couldn't pay. The Meadery operates as front for much larger criminal enterprise, with mead production providing legitimate income that masks illegal profits. Distribution networks move skooma alongside mead, using delivery routes to transport contraband without arousing suspicion. Workers at the Meadery are carefully vetted for loyalty, with Maven maintaining files on each employee documenting anything she could use as leverage. The Meadery represents Maven's genius at blending legal and illegal operations so thoroughly that distinguishing between them becomes impossible. It's perfect criminal enterprise, generating legitimate profits while facilitating illegal activities, protected by a complex corporate structure that obscures responsibility. Snowshod Manor's Stormcloak support. The family home contains substantial evidence of their material support for the Stormcloak Rebellion. Documents show they've been supplying weapons, armor, and food to rebel camps, while publicly maintaining neutrality. Letters from Ulfric thank them for their contributions and discuss military strategy. The Snowshods use their legitimate business operations as cover for moving military supplies. Shipments marked as commercial goods actually contain weapons being smuggled to Stormcloak forces. The family has invested significant portion of their wealth in the rebellion, betting on Stormcloak victory to enhance their political position. If the Imperials discovered this evidence, the Snowshod family would face execution for treason. They're risking everything to support independence, motivated by genuine belief in the Stormcloak cause rather than simple opportunism. The Manor's strongbox contains correspondence discussing post-war plans, assuming Stormcloak victory, showing how deeply invested the family is in that outcome. Their support represents significant private contribution to the rebellion, proving that the Stormcloaks succeed partly through wealthy families funding their operations while officially remaining uninvolved. Elgrim's Alchemy Shop research. Elgrim's shop contains experimental notes that would revolutionize alchemy if properly understood. His research into ingredient combination effects has uncovered patterns that other alchemists haven't recognized. He's documented ways that certain ingredients amplify each other's properties beyond simple addition, creating exponential effects. These discoveries could lead to potions far more powerful than currently possible. However, Elgrim lacks the mathematical training to fully understand the patterns he's observed. His notes are a mixture of brilliant insight and confused reasoning, making them difficult for others to interpret. He's discovered something profound about alchemy's underlying principles, but can't articulate it clearly. His wife Halfjorg's affair distracts him, preventing focused research that might complete his breakthrough. The notes represent lost potential, important discovery that might die with Elgrim because he can't communicate it effectively. If a trained scholar studied his notes, they could potentially complete his work and transform alchemical practice across Tamriel. But Elgrim is too proud to admit he needs help and too distracted by personal problems to push forward alone. Bolly's economic collapse. Bolly's house contains documents showing his business empire collapsing due to Maven's systematic sabotage. She's been undermining his operations for years, seeing him as threat to her economic dominance. Letters show contracts Bolly lost because Maven bribed or threatened his partners. Financial records reveal loans called in early after Maven bought them from original lenders, forcing Bolly to liquidate assets. Bid said businesses have been hit by mysterious accidents, shipments stolen, warehouses burned, always with plausible deniability but clear pattern. Bolly knows Maven is destroying him, but can't prove it or stop it. He's watching his fortune drain away, unable to protect his family's future. His marriage to Nivenal was supposed to provide political protection, but Maven's power exceeds any alliance Bolly could form. The documents show a successful merchant being systematically destroyed by someone more ruthless, proving that in Riften, Maven doesn't tolerate competition. Bolly's collapse serves as warning to other merchants. Don't challenge Maven's interest or face ruin. His situation represents the economic violence underlying Riften's power structure. Markarth's Sidna Mine Intelligence Hub. The mine isn't just a prison, but an intelligence-gathering operation. Forsworn prisoners maintain communications with their free brethren through coded messages in mind ore, workers sympathetic to Forsworn cause, and even corrupt guards. Information flows both ways, with prisoners learning about Forsworn movements and sending advice based on what they hear from guards and other prisoners. The mine effectively serves as Forsworn command center, where Madanak coordinates resistance despite being imprisoned. Maps scratched on cell walls show guard positions, escape routes, and the weak points in Markarth's defenses. The prisoners maintain detailed intelligence about the city, gathered through years of careful observation and communication with outside contacts. Some prisoners aren't actually criminals, but Forsworn operatives deliberately captured to infiltrate the mine. This creates a network where the line between prisoner and operative blurs. The mine represents the Forsworn's sophistication, showing they operate more like military organization than random bandits. Their use of imprisonment as strategic positioning demonstrates political and tactical thinking that undermines Nordic narratives about Forsworn as savages. Understone Keep's ancient Dwemer section. Beneath the current keep, there are sealed Dwemer ruins that haven't been fully explored. These ruins are more extensive than the public Nchuanzel excavation, representing an entire Dwemer district beneath Markarth. The Silverblood family knows about these ruins and has been secretly excavating them for decades, removing valuable artifacts and technology. They've kept this excavation secret because revealing it would require sharing finds with scholars and the government. Instead, they've been selling Dwemer artifacts on the black market, generating enormous profits. The excavation has uncovered intact Dwemer machinery, workshops, and even what might be residential areas, offering unprecedented insight into Dwemer daily life. But this knowledge remains hidden, hoarded by a family more interested in profit than history. The sealed ruins represent lost opportunities for understanding one of Tamriel's most mysterious civilizations, sacrificed to Silverblood greed. Workers in the secret excavation are sworn to silence through threats and bribes, creating conspiracy spanning decades. The treasury houses True Vault. Beyond the visible treasury, there's a deeper vault containing the accumulated wealth of the Silverblood family going back centuries. This vault holds gold, gems, artifacts, and incriminating documents that the family wants absolutely secure. The vault is accessed through a hidden passage in the public treasury, protected by both mechanical and magical locks. Inside, wealth is organized by generation, with each family leader's acquisitions kept separate. The oldest sections contain wealth that might have been acquired through means the family would rather forget, including evidence of ancestral crimes. The vault also contains insurance, documented evidence of crimes by other powerful families that the Silverbloods could use as blackmail if threatened. Letters from past Silverblood patriarchs discuss using this evidence to maintain power. The vault represents concentrated wealth and power accumulated through any means necessary, maintained across generations. Its physical manifestation of the family's philosophy that power justifies everything. If this vault were discovered and its contents revealed, it would expose centuries of Silverblood criminality. Markarth's water system secrets. The city's famous waterfall-fed aqueducts hide a secret monitoring system. The Silverbloods installed hidden pipes decades ago that allow them to poison the water supply if they ever need to control the population through fear or eliminate enemies. This system has never been used but remains functional, ready to deploy if the family's power is seriously threatened. The pipes could distribute various substances, from sedatives that would make citizens docile to poisons that would kill quickly. This represents ultimate power over Markarth's population, ability to control life and death through infrastructure everyone depends on. Knowledge of this system is limited to the Silverblood Patriarch and one trusted engineer who maintains it. The system is tested regularly to ensure functionality, though these tests use harmless dyes rather than dangerous substances. Citizens occasionally notice strange tastes or colors in their water, but attribute it to mineral content, rather than understanding their guinea pigs in readiness tests. The poisoning system represents the Silverbloods' willingness to commit mass murder if necessary to maintain power, converting essential infrastructure into weapon. Nepos' house and Forsworn network. Nepos the Nose's house serves as urban safe house for Forsworn operatives moving through Markarth. The house contains hidden rooms where Forsworn can hide, medical supplies for treating wounded operatives, and weapons caches for those preparing operations. Nepos coordinates Forsworn activities in the city, identifying targets, providing intelligence, and ensuring operatives can move safely. His position as seemingly harmless old man gives him perfect cover, as guards don't suspect him of involvement in resistance activities. His house has escape routes through the city's complex architecture, allowing Forsworn to flee if discovered. The safe house has been operating for years, with Nepos maintaining it through careful management and absolute discretion. His death during the Forsworn conspiracy quest eliminates crucial infrastructure, significantly damaging Forsworn urban operations. The house represents the Forsworn's ability to operate within their enemy's stronghold, maintaining presence in the city that oppresses them. After Nepos' death, other Forsworn struggled to establish similar infrastructure, showing how irreplaceable he was. The Hag's Cure connection. Bothela's shop serves as dead drop location for passing information between various criminal factions. Messages are hidden inside potion bottles, seemingly innocent transactions that actually exchange intelligence. Bothela charges for this service, making profit from crime while maintaining plausible deniability. If questioned, she's just selling potions. She can't be responsible for what customers do with them. Her shop's position in Markarth's market makes it perfect for these exchanges, as constant traffic makes individual transactions unremarkable. The information passing through her shop includes details about guard patrols, shipment schedules, and locations of valuable targets. Criminal organizations throughout the Reach use her shop as neutral ground for communication. Bothella's advanced age and apparent harmlessness give her protection, as few people believe she could be involved in serious crime. She's been operating this service for decades, becoming essential infrastructure for Reach's criminal underworld. Her shop represents how ordinary businesses can facilitate crime through providing communication channels while maintaining legitimate appearance. Arnleif and Sons Trading Company's smuggling. The trading company is front for Silverblood smuggling operations, moving stolen goods and contraband disguised as legitimate trade. Their wagons carry legal products on top while hiding illegal items beneath. The company has arrangements with guards along major routes, ensuring wagons aren't thoroughly searched. Arnleif knows his business is partially illegal, but convinces himself he's just following orders, maintaining willful ignorance about details. The company's ledgers contain coded entries, documenting illegal shipments alongside legitimate ones, creating record that would be damning if properly decoded. The smuggling operation moves various contraband, including Dwemer artifacts from illegal excavations, weapons for bandits the Silverblood secretly support, and materials for illegal mining operations. The company represents how legitimate businesses can be corrupted into criminal operations while maintaining functional front. Employees not involved in smuggling have no idea about the illegal activities, ensuring that most workers could honestly deny knowledge if questioned. Ogmund's secret Talos worship. The Skald maintains a hidden shrine to Talos in his house, continuing worship despite the public ban. The shrine is concealed behind a bookshelf, accessible only by pulling specific books in sequence. Ogmund conducts private religious services for Talos believers, risking severe punishment if discovered. His house has been used for these illegal worship sessions for months, with participants carefully screened for trustworthiness. The shrine contains religious texts, idols, and offerings from worshippers. Ogmund's position as Skald gives his worship special significance, as he preserves religious traditions through songs and stories that implicitly support Talos without explicitly violating the ban. His secret worship represents quiet resistance to the White Gold Concordat, religious freedom maintained through secrecy and risk. If Ondalamar discovers this shrine, Ogmund faces imprisonment or execution, but he continues worshipping because his faith outweighs his fear. The hidden shrine represents how religious devotion survives persecution through believers willing to risk everything. The Warrens' hidden residence. Markarth's poorest district contains hidden residents living in concealed spaces within the rock walls. These people are so poor, they can't even afford the Warrens' lowest accommodations, living in natural crevices and carved niches invisible to casual observers. They survive through begging, theft, and scavenging, existing completely outside the city's economic system. The Silverbloods know about these hidden residents, but ignore them, seeing them as beneath notice and of no economic value. These people have created micro-communities in their hidden spaces, sharing resources and protecting each other from the few who know they exist. Children are born in these hidden spaces, grow up knowing they're not supposed to exist, learning to hide and move silently. This population represents Markarth's complete failure to provide for its poorest citizens, creating conditions where people live literally in the walls like rats. The hidden residents are invisible victims of the Silverbloods' economic oppression. People who fell so far through social cracks, they stopped being considered human. Morthal's Alva's vampire coven plans. Alva's house contains documents revealing she's been working to establish a vampire coven in Morthal, planning to turn the town into feeding ground. Letters from Movath discuss recruiting more vampires, identifying potential thralls, and eventually revealing vampirism to the town once they have enough strength to control it through fear. The plan is sophisticated, involving years of preparation and careful manipulation. Alva has been documenting townspeople's routines, identifying who would resist and who could be controlled. She's been slowly turning key individuals, creating network of thralls and dominated citizens. If the player hadn't intervened, Morthal would have eventually fallen under complete vampire control, becoming a nightmare town where everyone serves undead masters. The documents reveal the vulnerability of small settlements to supernatural threats, showing how organized vampires can systematically take over isolated communities. Alva's plan represents calculated evil, using patience and intelligence rather than immediate violence. Falion's secret practice. The wizard who can cure vampirism has been conducting this service for years, making substantial income from desperate vampires. His house contains records of everyone he's cured, creating a database of former vampires across Skyrim. This information would be valuable to vampire hunters or anyone wanting to blackmail former vampires about their past. Condition: Falion charges appropriate fees for his discretion, building wealth through this illegal service. His cure involves Daedric rituals that he's adapted from ancient texts, demonstrating sophisticated magical knowledge. He's one of few mages who can reliably perform this specific type of restoration magic. His practice in Morthal is deliberate, as the town's isolation and Idgrod's laissez-faire leadership allow him to operate without harassment. If his practice were discovered by more zealous authorities, he'd face charges related to consorting with Daedra and helping monsters. His service represents grey area in magical practice, helping cursed individuals while using methods that many consider evil. Falion walks ethical tightrope, doing genuine good through questionable means. Morthal's guardhouse secret cells. The guardhouse has cells that aren't documented in official records, used for holding people who the Jarl once disappeared without formal arrest. These cells have held political enemies, witnesses to sensitive events, and individuals whose existence became inconvenient. Prisoners in these cells have no legal protection, exist in limbo, where they can be held indefinitely or executed without trial. The secret cells represent the dark side of Nord justice, showing that even small holds have mechanisms for extra-legal imprisonment. Guards assigned to these cells are selected for loyalty and moral flexibility, willing to imprison people without asking questions about charges or rights. Some prisoners have been held for years, forgotten by everyone except the guards who feed them. The cells prove that Morthal's rustic appearance hides sophisticated mechanisms of political oppression, showing that tyranny doesn't require large cities. Dawnstar's Nightmare Plague origins. The Nightmare Plague affecting Dawnstar's residents isn't just Vermina's direct influence, but is amplified by ancient magic embedded in the town's foundations. When Dawnstar was built, founders unknowingly constructed over ruins that had been used for dream-based rituals by a cult of Vermina centuries earlier. These ruins still radiate magical energy that makes residents susceptible to nightmares and supernatural influence. The Nightcaller Temple's proximity increases the effect, creating perfect conditions for Vermina's invasion of townspeople's dreams. The plague has happened periodically throughout Dawnstar's history, flaring up when conditions align correctly. Historical records mention previous nightmare outbreaks that spontaneously ended, suggesting the magical amplification varies in intensity. The town's vulnerability to nightmare attacks is architectural, built into the location itself. Even after Erendur's quest ends the immediate threat, Dawnstar remains susceptible to future nightmare plagues. This reveals that some locations are inherently dangerous due to their history and underlying magical properties. The Whitehall's Dark Library. Beneath the Jarl's Longhouse, there's a library containing forbidden knowledge collected by previous Jarls. This library includes Daedric texts, necromantic manuals, and historical accounts of crimes that leadership wants hidden. The library exists because knowledge is power, even when that knowledge is dangerous or immoral. Previous Jarls studied these texts to better understand threats facing Dawnstar, but also to explore possibilities that conventional morality forbids. The library includes journals from the Jarls themselves, discussing temptations to use forbidden magic for the town's benefit. Some entries reveal past leaders seriously considered necromancy to bolster town defenses, or Daedric pacts to improve fishing catches. The library is kept secret because revealing it would destroy faith in Dawnstar's leadership, showing that those who appear righteous have studied evil extensively. Current leadership maintains the library partially for historical reasons, but also because they occasionally need information about supernatural threats. The Forbidden Library represents the necessity of understanding evil to fight it, showing how leaders must sometimes study darkness to protect light. Quicksilver Mine's true depth. The mine extends far deeper than miners publicly acknowledge, reaching deposits that are technically located beneath the ocean floor. The deepest sections flood periodically when miners dig too aggressively, requiring constant pumping to remain accessible. These deep sections contain the richest ore deposits, but are extremely dangerous, with risk of drowning if pumping equipment fails. Several miners have died in these deep sections when water broke through unexpectedly. The mine's owners keep the dangerous deep sections operational because ore quality justifies the risk, valuing profit over safety. Miners who work the deep sections are paid premium wages to compensate for danger, but many eventually refuse despite money, knowing the risk isn't worth any salary. The mine represents extractive capitalism at its most brutal, pushing workers into life-threatening conditions to maximize mineral extraction. The deep sections are geological marvel, but human nightmare, demonstrating how far people will go when profits are at stake. Windpeak Inn Smuggler Way Station. Thoring's Inn serves as way station for smugglers moving goods between Solitude and Windhelm. The inn's position makes it perfect stopping point for illegal caravans that need to avoid major roads. Thoring provides food, rooms, and most importantly, information about patrol routes and safe passage times. He's built relationships with bandits and smugglers throughout the region, becoming trusted figure in criminal networks. His inn makes as much money from smugglers as from legitimate travelers. The inn's barn contains hidden compartments for storing contraband during investigations. Thoring has arrangements with local guards who warn him before inspections, giving him time to hide illegal goods. His cooperation with criminal networks is motivated purely by profit, showing how ordinary businesses can become crucial infrastructure for illegal trade. The inn represents how remote locations naturally become criminal havens when they're beyond effective law enforcement. Winterhold's college refugee integration failure. The collapse of Winterhold destroyed most of the city, but the college's refusal to help rebuild created permanent rift between institution and survivors. College archives contain documents showing the college could have helped reconstruction through magic, providing structural support, creating food through conjuration, or healing injured citizens. The college chose not to help because leadership viewed the collapse as natural consequence of building on unstable land, not their responsibility to fix. This decision destroyed any goodwill between college and town, creating lasting resentment. The town's poverty and isolation stems partially from the college's abandonment. If the college had helped, Winterhold might have recovered economically, maintaining its position as important city. Instead, the college's selfishness condemned Winterhold to permanent decline. Documents show heated debates among college majors about whether to help, with some arguing for compassion, while others insisted on neutrality. The decision to stay neutral represents institutional failure, choosing principle over humanity. The town's current state is partially the college's fault, making residents' hatred understandable and justified. The Frozen Hearth's historical documentation. Dagger and Haran maintain a private collection of documents about Winterhold's history, including accounts of the Great Collapse from survivors. These first-hand accounts describe the horror of watching buildings slide into the sea, the screams of drowning citizens, and the desperate attempts to save anyone possible. The documents paint a vivid picture of tragedy that killed hundreds and destroyed a great city. The inn's owners maintain this collection as historical duty, preserving truth about what happened. Some accounts blame the college, others blame natural forces, and a few suggest sabotage by rival cities or foreign powers. The collection includes architectural plans from before the collapse, showing Winterhold's former grandeur. Letters from refugees describe their struggles to rebuild lives elsewhere, facing prejudice as people from the cursed city. The documentation represents an informal archive preserving history that official sources might gloss over. The innkeepers see themselves as guardians of truth, ensuring future generations understand the magnitude of Winterhold's tragedy and the failure of institutions that could have helped but didn't. Burner's smuggling operation. The general goods store is front for smuggling operation, moving contraband from college sources to markets in other cities. College majors occasionally create or discover items too dangerous or illegal to sell openly, and Burner provides channel for disposing of them profitably. She buys enchanted items, alchemical substances, and magical artifacts that the college wants gone, no questions asked. Her connections to criminal networks allow her to sell these items where they won't be traced back to the college. This arrangement benefits both parties, with the college disposing of problems, while Burner makes substantial profits. Her store's legitimate business is struggling, but smuggling keeps her wealthy. Documents in her office show transactions involving items that should never have left the college, including potentially dangerous magical artifacts. If authorities discovered her operation, both she and college officials would face serious charges. Her smuggling represents the college's hypocrisy, officially disapproving of illegal magic trade, while quietly facilitating it through intermediaries. The Jarl's Longhouse. Prison secret. Winterhold's minimal prison facility contains a secret execution chamber, where the Jarl can order killings without public knowledge. This chamber was built during a period of political instability, when previous Jarls needed ability to eliminate threats quietly. The chamber contains implements for various execution methods, from simple hanging to more elaborate techniques. Its existence reveals the darker aspects of Nordic justice, showing that even small holes maintain infrastructure for state-sanctioned murder. The current Jarl Courier uses this chamber rarely, but maintains it ready for future need. The chamber's secrecy ensures that enemies can be eliminated without creating martyrs or raising questions about legal procedures. guards know about the chamber but are forbidden from discussing it, maintaining conspiracy of silence around its existence and use. The chamber represents how justice systems include mechanisms that contradict their public principles, showing gap between official ideals and practical reality of maintaining power. Falkreath's Dark Brotherhood connections. The town's proximity to the Dark Brotherhood sanctuary means many residents have indirect connections to the assassin organization. Some residents provide supplies to the Brotherhood, selling food, equipment, and information for gold. Others serve as lookouts, warning the Brotherhood about investigations or guard activities. This creates an economic relationship between the town and the assassins, with some of Falkreath's economy depending on Brotherhood spending. Town leadership officially opposes the Brotherhood, but unofficially tolerates them because eliminating the sanctuary would damage the local economy. Guards know about the Brotherhood's presence, but avoid actively seeking them, understanding that confrontation would be dangerous and economically damaging. This uneasy coexistence represents pragmatic accommodation to criminal presence, choosing economic benefits over moral principles. Falkreath's relationship with the Dark Brotherhood shows how crime can become integrated into communities when it provides material benefits that outweigh moral concerns. Dead Man's Drink Intelligence Hub, Valga Venetia's Inn, serves as intelligence gathering post for various factions, with the innkeeper selling information to whoever pays. Her position lets her overhear conversations from travelers, guards, and local residents, giving her access to valuable intelligence. She sells information about troop movements, political developments, and personal secrets to interested parties. Her customer base includes the Empire, Stormcloaks, Thalmor, and various criminal organizations, making her one of Skyrim's most valuable information brokers. She's scrupulously neutral, selling to all sides without loyalty to any, motivated purely by profit. Her inn has become known among intelligence operatives as place to acquire or sell information, creating marketplace for secrets. This intelligence hub makes Falkreath strategically important beyond its size. As information passing through the inn influences decisions across Skyrim, Valga's neutrality protects her, as all factions value her services too much to eliminate her. Her operation represents the information economy underlying Skyrim's conflicts, showing how some people profit from war regardless of who wins. Lodsguard corruption. The town guard is systematically corrupt, taking bribes to ignore crimes and warn criminals about investigations. This corruption stems from low wages and poor working conditions that make guards receptive to supplemental income. Local criminals have effectively purchased the guards' cooperation, creating a system where law enforcement serves those who can pay, rather than public interest. Lord, as blacksmith supplying the guard, knows about this corruption, but says nothing because he benefits from it, selling weapons and armor at inflated prices to guards who can afford it through bribes. The corruption is open secret in Falkreath, with residents understanding that guards serve themselves rather than citizens. This creates an atmosphere of lawlessness, where only the wealthy can secure protection or justice. The guard corruption represents institutional failure that allows crime to flourish, while maintaining appearance of law and order. Dengir's paranoid truth. The former Jarl's paranoia about conspiracy and enemies is partially justified by real evidence he's accumulated. His house contains documents showing that he was removed from power through coordinated effort by rivals who spread rumors about his mental decline. Letters reveal discussions about how to undermine his authority and create pretexts for replacement. Dengir's obsession with conspiracy isn't pure madness, but response to actual plot against him. However, his paranoia has expanded beyond the real conspiracy to imagine threats everywhere, mixing legitimate concerns with delusions. His documents prove that some conspiracies are real, validating his worldview even as his mental state deteriorates. The mixture of genuine evidence and paranoid interpretation makes it difficult to separate truth from delusion in Dengir's claims. His situation represents how real persecution can trigger or justify paranoia, creating feedback loop where genuine threats and imagined ones become indistinguishable. The Hall of the Dead's ancient catacombs. Beneath Falkreath's Hall of the Dead, there are catacombs containing remains from the city's founding era. These catacombs extend far beyond the accessible burial chambers, representing centuries of interments. The oldest sections contain burial practices different from modern Nordic traditions, suggesting cultural changes over time. Some tombs show evidence of hasty burials during plague or war, with multiple bodies in single graves. The catacombs include sealed sections that priests refuse to open, containing remains of individuals whose deaths were considered cursed or evil. These sealed tombs are marked with warnings and protective runes, suggesting the dead within weren't trusted to stay dead. Exploration of the deepest catacombs reveals evidence of ancient looting, with graves opened and valuables taken. Crimes that occurred so long ago, the criminals are themselves long dead. The catacombs represent Falkreath's entire history written in bones, showing how the city has dealt with death across centuries. Riverwood's secret militia. The small village maintains a hidden militia that trains regularly, despite no apparent threat justifying it. This militia includes most adult males and some women, all trained in basic combat. They drill in the forest away from the village, maintaining skills that seem unnecessary for peaceful lumber town. The militia's existence stems from Riverwood's history of being attacked by bandits and wild creatures, creating culture of self-defense preparedness. Alvar and Gerda lead the militia, organizing training schedules and maintaining a small armory hidden in Alvar's smithy. The militia's weapons are stored secretly because displaying military readiness might attract unwanted attention from either Empire or Stormcloaks, both of whom might try to conscript the force. The militia represents rural communities' self-reliance and distrust of external protection, showing how villagers maintain agency through capability for self-defense. The Riverwood Traders' Black Market. Lucan Valerius's shop serves as outlet for stolen goods from bandits who rob travelers on nearby roads. Lucan doesn't ask questions about merchandise origin, buying items at low prices and reselling at significant markup. This black market trade makes him more profitable than his legitimate sales would support. He maintains a legitimate facade while quietly facilitating theft and fencing, becoming middleman between criminals and honest customers. His sister Camilla suspects but doesn't confront him because the family needs the income. The black market operation puts Lucan in dangerous position, as he's essentially partnered with bandits who could turn on him if he stops being useful. His involvement in criminal economy represents how normal people get drawn into illegal activities through financial pressure and opportunity. The Sleeping Giant Inn's refugee network. Delphine uses her inn to shelter refugees from both sides of the Civil War, providing safe house for those fleeing violence. She maintains this network while also conducting Blades operations, juggling multiple secret identities and purposes. The refugees she helps have no idea about her Blades affiliation, seeing her only as compassionate innkeeper. She charges minimal rates for refugees, while charging full price to ordinary travelers, using profits from regular guests to subsidize those in need. Her refugee network has saved dozens of people from persecution, starvation, or death, or representing her genuine care for innocent victims despite her ruthless approach to dragon-related missions. The network operates through word of mouth, with refugees telling others about the safe inn in Riverwood, where the owner asks no questions. Delphine's dual nature as both compassionate refugee helper and secret operative shows her moral complexity. Ivarsted's economic decline. The village is slowly dying economically, with population shrinking as young people leave for opportunities elsewhere. Records in Wilhelm's Inn show steady population decline over past decades, from thriving town to barely viable village. The 7,000 steps. Pilgrim traffic provides some income, but isn't enough to sustain the community long term. Most buildings are partially abandoned, maintained minimally by residents who can't afford to leave. The village's decline represents broader rural collapse throughout Skyrim, showing how economic forces concentrate population in cities while draining countryside. Young people who grow up in Ivarsted face choice between accepting poverty and isolation or abandoning their home and culture. The village's slow death is tragedy playing out in real time, with residents knowing their community won't survive another generation. Wilhelm's murder investigation failure. The innkeeper knows more about Raider's death than he admits, possibly having witnessed something that would implicate powerful people. His refusal to investigate thoroughly stems from fear rather than incompetence, as he understands that uncovering truth might put him in danger. Letters suggest he's been warned to stop asking questions about Raider's disappearance, threatened by someone with power to make threats meaningful. His failure to help Nafi isn't callousness, but self-preservation, choosing his own safety over helping a grieving man. This moral failure haunts Wilhelm, contributing to his drinking and depression. He knows he should help, but can't overcome his fear, living with guilt while rationalizing his inaction. His situation represents how ordinary people become complicit in injustice through fear, failing moral tests because courage requires risk they're unwilling to take. High Hrothgar's secret archives. The monastery contains archives documenting centuries of Greybeard history, including records of all Dragonborn who have visited. These archives reveal that Dragonborn appear more frequently than widely believed, though most accomplish little. The Greybeards maintain records of training sessions, philosophical debates, and conflicts with various Dragonborn over proper use of the voice. Some records describe Dragonborn who rejected the way of the voice and used their power for conquest, creating exactly the problems the Greybeards warn about. The archives include techniques and words of power that aren't taught anymore, either because they're too dangerous or because knowledge was lost. These forgotten shouts could potentially be relearned if someone studied the archives carefully. The records represent institutional memory spanning thousands of years, making the Greybeards' living connection to ancient Nord history. The throat of the world's hermit. Before Paarthurnax, other beings lived on the mountain seeking isolation and enlightenment. Evidence of ancient camps and meditation spots suggests the throat of the world has been pilgrimage site for millennia. Some camps contain remains of hermits who died during meditation, achieving the death they sought in sacred space. The mountain attracts those seeking to escape the world, knowing the harsh conditions and isolation will break them or transform them. Paarthurnax is latest in long line of beings who found the summit appropriate place for contemplation and penance. The mountain's history of solitary seekers reveals Nordic tradition of vision quests and spiritual isolation that predates organized religion. Raven Rock's East Empire Company, corruption. The company's Raven Rock operation is rife with embezzlement and fraud, with administrators stealing from both the company and the local population. Records show systematic theft of goods, falsified expense reports, and bribes paid to keep operations running despite being unprofitable. The corruption has nearly bankrupted the Raven Rock office, making it vulnerable to closure. Company officials in Solitude suspect corruption, but lack evidence to prosecute anyone. The corruption represents colonial economics at their worst, with distant corporations exploiting local populations while their own representatives steal from everyone. The situation shows how businesses fail not from external competition, but from internal rot, as employees prioritize personal enrichment over institutional success. Tel Mithrin's Wizard Tower experiments. Master Neloth conducts magical experiments that would be illegal in more civilized areas, taking advantage of Solstheim's lack of oversight. His experiments include dangerous conjuration rituals, attempts to artificially extend life beyond natural limits, and research into mind control through magical means. He's created several abominations that he keeps hidden in Tower's lowest levels, failed experiments that still live in tormented states. Neloth's ethical standards are minimal, viewing morality as constraint that limits scientific progress. His work would horrify most mages, but Solstheim's isolation allows him to pursue knowledge without interference. His tower represents the danger of brilliant minds operating without ethical oversight, showing how genius can become monstrous when unconstrained. Thirsk Mead Halls. Leadership crisis. The Hall's leadership transition from Nords to Reeklings represents cultural crisis that reflects broader changes in Solstheim. The Nords who lost the Hall see it as humiliation and symbol of their decline. The Reeklings view their conquest as legitimate victory, claiming territory through strength as Nord culture traditionally respects. The situation creates philosophical question about whether Nords should accept defeat by beings they considered inferior, or fight to reclaim what's theirs. The leadership crisis represents how cultures deal with changing circumstances and whether traditional values apply when the world has changed. The Hall's fate reflects broader questions about cultural identity and adaptation. Skal Village's ancient traditions. The Skal maintain religious and cultural practices from before Nordic settlement of Skyrim, representing indigenous Solstheim culture. Their traditions include shamanic practices, nature worship, and magic systems different from standard Nordic or imperial approaches. The Skal are a living museum of pre-modern Nord culture, showing what Nordic civilization looked like before empire and before widespread adoption of the divines. Their isolation has preserved knowledge and practices lost elsewhere, making them culturally invaluable. However, this isolation also makes them vulnerable to external threats they're unprepared to face. The Skal represent tension between cultural preservation and adaptation, showing both the value and cost of maintaining traditions in changing world. Raven Rock's Redoran Guard duty. The guards protecting Raven Rock aren't just security, but represent House Redoran's honor and commitment to protecting Dark Elf refugees. The guards serve without adequate payment because House Redoran considers protecting their people a sacred duty. Many guards have personal connections to Raven Rock, having family members who settled there after Red Mountain's eruption. Their service represents selfless dedication to community beyond personal benefit. The guards know they're defending an economically failing settlement, but they continue serving because duty transcends economics in Redran philosophy. Their presence proves that not all actions are motivated by profit or self-interest, showing how cultural values can inspire sustained commitment even in difficult circumstances. Kolbjorn Barrow's cursed history. The barrow contains not just ancient treasure, but evidence of curse that has killed everyone who excavated it over centuries. Previous attempts to explore the barrow ended in mysterious deaths, madness, or disappearances. Records in Raven Rock mention multiple failed excavations, with each attempt ending catastrophically. The curse appears to be magical protection placed by the barrow's original inhabitants, defending their tomb against desecration. Ralis's excavation is latest in a long line of doomed attempts, following pattern of initial success, followed by supernatural resistance. The curse suggests that some places are meant to remain sealed, that ancient Nords understood dangers modern treasure hunters ignore. The barrow represents recurring failure to learn from history. As each generation of treasure seekers convinces themselves they'll succeed where others failed. The bulwark's construction history. The massive wall protecting Raven Rock from ash storms was built through enormous collective effort by Dark Elf refugees who had nothing but needed protection. Construction records show thousands of refugees working on the wall for years, often with inadequate tools and materials. The wall represents triumph of desperate necessity, showing what people can accomplish when survival depends on it. Many workers died during construction from exhaustion, accidents, or ash exposure, making the bulwark monument built on graves of those who never lived to enjoy the protection it provides. The wall's construction unified the refugee community, giving them shared purpose and accomplishment. It represents how tragedy can create solidarity, bringing people together through shared struggle. Severin Manor's hidden history. The manor was built on the site of an older house that burned under mysterious circumstances, with rumors suggesting the fire was set deliberately to hide evidence of crimes. Investigation of the manor's foundations reveals charred remains and burnt documents that suggest the previous owners were involved in something illegal or immoral. The Severins either don't know about this history or choose to ignore it, living atop buried secrets. The manor's history represents how new beginnings often literally build over past crimes, burying history rather than addressing it. The burnt documents contain fragments suggesting involvement in slavery, smuggling, or possibly worse, crimes that someone wanted permanently erased through fire. The abandoned lodge's dark secret. The building outside Raven Rock was once meeting place for secret society practicing forbidden magic. Evidence throughout the lodge shows ritual spaces, magical diagrams, and alchemical equipment used for dark purposes. The society disbanded suddenly, with members either fleeing or being killed by something they summoned. Documents suggest their magical experiments went catastrophically wrong, releasing something they couldn't control. The lodge remains abandoned because locals fear it's cursed, haunted by whatever the society unleashed. The building represents dangers of pursuing forbidden knowledge without adequate precautions, showing how curiosity and ambition can destroy those who don't respect magical forces they're manipulating. Old Atius Farm's struggling survival. The farm barely produces enough to sustain the family, representing agriculture's difficulty in Solstheim's harsh environment. The Atius family works constantly, yet remains poor, showing that hard work alone doesn't guarantee success when environment is hostile. They're trapped by investment in land that can't sustain them, but which they can't abandon, because they have nowhere else to go. Their situation represents thousands of farmers throughout history who struggled with marginal land, choosing slow failure over terrifying uncertainty of starting over. The farm shows how geography shapes destiny, how being born in wrong place can condemn someone to lifelong poverty, regardless of effort or character. Morvain Manor's political tightrope. Councillor Morvain maintains power through careful balancing of competing interests, managing relations with the Empire, House Redoran, local Nords, and various economic factions. His house contains extensive correspondence documenting diplomatic negotiations, compromises, and occasionally deceptions necessary to keep Raven Rock functioning. The councillor's position requires constant political maneuvering, as any faction could withdraw support and collapse the settlement's fragile stability. His leadership represents the exhausting work of maintaining consensus in divided community, showing how political leadership often involves endless compromise and negotiation, rather than decisive action. Vethis, Alor's farming innovation. The farmer has developed techniques for growing food in Solstheim's ash-covered soil, creating methods that could potentially help other struggling farms. His innovations include composting systems, ash-neutralizing treatments, and crop selection adapted to local conditions. However, he hasn't widely shared these techniques, either from desire to maintain competitive advantage or from inability to effectively communicate complex agricultural science. His knowledge represents lost potential, innovations that could help others but remain underutilized. The situation shows how useful knowledge often doesn't spread effectively, as information transfer requires both technical understanding and communication skills that not everyone possesses. The Glover Mallory secret. The Master Smith is actually Delvin Mallory's brother, maintaining distance from his criminal family while building legitimate life. His house contains letters from Delvin that he's never responded to, showing family connection he's tried to sever. Glover left the Thieves Guild lifestyle to pursue honest craftsmanship, but his brother's letters occasionally ask for favors that blur the line between family loyalty and criminal complicity. His internal conflict represents difficulty of escaping criminal family connections, showing how past follows people even when they've changed. His blacksmithing success proves that guild members can have legitimate talents and could succeed in honest work if they chose different paths. Crassius Corellius's obsessive investigation. His investigation into the East Empire Company has consumed his life, destroying his relationships and mental health. Documents in his house show years of research, evidence collection, and increasingly paranoid theories. While he's correct about company corruption, his obsession has pushed him toward madness. His situation represents how pursuit of justice can become destructive when it dominates someone's entire existence. The investigation gives his life purpose, but also isolates him and damages his well-being. His story shows tension between pursuing truth and maintaining personal health, questioning whether exposing corruption is worth the personal cost when the revelation might not change anything. Leril Morvain's assassination. Prevention. The councillor survives multiple assassination attempts, maintaining security protocols that most people never see. His house has hidden guard positions, secret escape routes, and magical detection systems identifying potential threats. The security infrastructure represents constant danger faced by political leaders, showing that governance requires not just wisdom, but willingness to live under permanent threat. The assassination attempts come from various sources, including political rivals in Morrowind, economic competitors in Solitude, and Solstheim factions opposing his policies. His survival depends on vigilance and sophisticated security rather than luck. proving that leadership success includes mastering threat assessment and protection strategies. Dragonborn's cultural impact. The player's arrival in Solstheim creates cultural ripples that permanently alter the community. Locals discuss the Dragonborn's deeds, creating legends that will be told for generations. The Dragonborn represents outside force that reshapes isolated community, bringing change that residents didn't request and can't control. This represents broader pattern of how individuals with exceptional power alter communities simply through their presence, regardless of intentions. The cultural impact shows that heroism isn't always welcome. A significant change disrupts even when it solves problems. Kynesgrove's Inn politics. The Braidwood Inn serves as informal political centre for the small mining town, where decisions are made through tavern discussions rather than formal governance. Idra facilitates these discussions while maintaining neutrality, ensuring the inn remains space where different viewpoints can be expressed. The informal governance represents how small communities self-organize without requiring official political structures. Decisions emerge through consensus built during drinking and conversation, creating democracy that feels natural rather than imposed. The inn's political function shows how infrastructure like taverns serve purposes beyond their obvious commercial roles, becoming institutions that hold communities together. Shorestone's isolation. The mining village is so isolated that residents develop distinct accent and culture, diverging from mainstream Nordic society. Their isolation creates both resilience and vulnerability, as they're self-sufficient, but lack support networks available to connected communities. The villagers maintain traditions that disappeared elsewhere, preserving old songs, stories, and practices. Their isolation represents thousands of rural communities throughout history that developed unique identities through separation from cultural centers. The village shows both benefits and costs of isolation, demonstrating how independence requires accepting separation from broader society. Darkwater Crossing's mining collapse. The settlement faces economic catastrophe as the mine becomes less productive, forcing community to decide between abandoning their homes or finding new economic foundation. The crisis represents extractive economies' inevitable decline when resources are depleted. Communities built around single industries face existential threats when that industry fails. The crossing situation shows how economic dependence creates vulnerability, questioning sustainability of settlements based on non-renewable resources. The community's possible responses, ranging from migration to economic reinvention, reveal how people adapt to changing circumstances. The Golden Glow mystery. The estate's productivity seems impossible given its size and labor force, suggesting enhanced growth, techniques, or magical augmentation. Investigation might reveal that the bees produce honey at rates that violate normal biology, possibly due to magical influence or selective breeding. The mystery represents how magical elements integrate into seemingly mundane economic activities in Skyrim. The estate's success might involve secrets that the owner guards carefully, fearing that revealing methods would allow competitors to replicate them. The mystery shows how fantasy settings require accepting that normal economic rules don't fully apply when magic exists. Nightgate Inn's suspicious safety. The inn sits in bandit-infested region, yet is never attacked, suggesting arrangement with local criminals. Investigation reveals that the innkeeper pays protection money to multiple bandit clans, ensuring safety for the inn and its guests. This arrangement is open secret among frequent travelers, who understand that the inn's security comes from cooperation with, rather than defense against, bandits. The situation represents grey areas in security and law, where survival sometimes requires compromising with criminals. The innkeeper isn't evil but pragmatic, choosing manageable corruption over constant danger. Mixwater Mill's Grellard connection. The mill has economic ties to Honor Hall Orphanage through supply contracts, making it complicit in the orphanage's operation. The mill provides food and materials to the orphanage at below-market prices, supporting Grellard's institution. After Grellard's death and the orphanage's reformation, the mill loses a steady customer, showing how criminal or abusive institutions create economic dependencies. People who weren't directly involved in abuse benefited from it economically, creating webs of complicity. The mill's situation represents how institutions of oppression are supported by networks of seemingly innocent economic relationships. Snowshot Farm's productivity. The farm produces significantly more food than comparable farms through techniques passed down through generations. These techniques include crop rotation patterns, fertilization methods, and water management systems that optimize yield. The family guards these techniques as trade secrets, understanding they provide competitive advantage. However, sharing this knowledge could improve food security throughout the rift, creating tension between family interest and collective good. The farm represents how useful knowledge often remains private, as those who possess it view it as property rather than resource to be shared. The situation questions whether agricultural knowledge should be considered public good or private asset. Heartwood Mill's lumber. Quality. The mill produces superior lumber because it selectively harvests from old-growth forests using sustainable techniques. The owners understand forestry in ways that commercial operations don't, balancing current production with long-term forest health. Their approach generates less lumber but higher quality, creating niche market for premium materials. The mill represents sustainable resource management, showing that careful use can maintain productivity indefinitely. However, their approach requires accepting lower short-term profits for long-term sustainability, a trade-off that many businesses reject. Merryfair Farm's silent tragedy. The farm's owners work tirelessly, yet remain poor, trapped by debts and circumstances beyond their control. They represent hard-working people who fail not from lack of effort, but from structural economic disadvantages. Their poverty persists despite doing everything right, questioning the just world narrative that hard work guarantees success. The farm shows how economic systems can trap people, where initial disadvantages compound over time, making escape increasingly difficult. Their situation represents silent suffering of rural poor, who work constantly, yet never achieve security. Largashbur's transformation. After the curse is lifted, the stronghold begins recovering, but faces long process of rebuilding trust and stability. The transformation shows that solving immediate crises doesn't automatically fix underlying problems. The orcs must rebuild not just physical structures but social cohesion, psychological health, and economic foundations. Their recovery represents how communities heal from trauma, requiring years of sustained effort beyond the dramatic moment of rescue. The stronghold's future remains uncertain, showing that happy endings aren't instantaneous, but processes requiring ongoing work. Nazulbur's mining politics. The stronghold's mine creates internal political tensions as wealth distribution becomes a contentious issue. Some orcs work harder, but don't receive proportional compensation, creating resentment. The chief must manage these tensions while maintaining productivity and social cohesion. The situation represents how economic systems create conflict even in small, supposedly unified communities. The mining politics show that even in culture that values strength and honor, economic factors generate disputes that can't be resolved through combat alone. Dushnik Yal's religious conservatism. The stronghold maintains strictly traditional Orcish religious practices that other strongholds have somewhat modernized. Their conservatism creates both strength through cultural preservation and weakness through inflexibility. The stronghold represents how traditions can be both anchor providing stability and chain preventing adaptation. Their religious devotion to Malakath shapes every aspect of life, for better and worse. The stronghold shows how deeply held beliefs structure communities, determining what's possible and what's forbidden. Morkazgur's gender politics. The stronghold's female chief represents unusual situation in patriarchal Orc culture. Her leadership is constantly questioned and challenged in ways male chiefs wouldn't face. She must be stronger and more competent than male leaders to receive equivalent respect. Her position represents women who break gender barriers, succeeding despite systemic disadvantages. The stronghold's dynamics show how gender shapes power relationships even in culture that theoretically values strength, regardless of source. Her leadership questions whether cultural change is possible or whether exceptional individuals simply prove rules by being exceptions. Dragon Bridge's military importance. The town's strategic location makes it crucial military asset that both sides in civil war desperately want to control. The bridge enables troop movements, supply lines, and communication between Skyrim's western holds. Military significance overwhelms the town's civilian character, as soldiers treat it as strategic position rather than community. Residents are caught between armies, suffering from military presence regardless of which side controls the town. Their situation represents how civilians become casualties of military strategy, with their homes and lives subordinated to strategic considerations. Dragon Bridge overlooks surveillance. The military position provides views of all traffic using the bridge, allowing guards to monitor movement between Harfinger and the Reach. The overlook serves intelligence gathering function, documenting who travels where and enabling military forces to intercept specific targets. The surveillance represents how military infrastructure enables population control, showing that fortifications serve not just defensive purposes, but oppressive ones. The overlook proves that military presence in civilian areas is always partly about controlling local population, not just defending against external enemies. Rorikstead's agricultural mystery. The village's exceptional crop yields, despite poor soil and harsh climate, suggest magical enhancement or deal with supernatural forces. Investigation might reveal that the village's founder made pact with Daedric Prince or learned ancient agricultural magic. The mystery represents unsettling possibility that prosperity sometimes comes from dark sources, that communities can make terrible bargains for short-term success. The village's unnaturally successful farming creates prosperity that might have horrible price that residents either don't know about or refuse to acknowledge. Soljun's sinkhole catastrophe. The mine's catastrophic collapse destroyed not just the mine, but the entire community's economic foundation. The sinkhole represents environmental disasters created by extractive industries, showing how resource extraction can destroy the ground beneath communities literally and figuratively. The catastrophe demonstrates that economic activities have physical consequences, that pursuing profit without considering geological stability creates disasters. The sinkhole represents failures of planning and greed, where short-term economic gains create long-term, catastrophic losses. Left-hand mine's labor conditions. The mine operates under conditions that are technically legal but morally questionable, with workers enduring dangerous conditions for minimal pay. The mine represents capitalism's tendency toward exploitation when unchecked by regulation or ethics. Workers accept terrible conditions because alternatives are worse, creating a system where employers can maximize profit by minimizing worker welfare. The mine shows how economic power creates exploitation, with workers having no choice but to accept conditions that slowly destroy their health. Carthwason's ownership dispute. The town's contested ownership between Silverbloods and independent miners represents broader conflicts between corporate power and individual rights. The dispute shows how legal systems often favor wealthy and powerful, making justice difficult for ordinary people to obtain. The contested ownership creates uncertainty that damages the community, as unclear authority prevents necessary investments and improvements. The dispute represents how legal ambiguity can be weaponized by powerful parties to maintain control while avoiding clear ownership responsibilities. Old Hrolden's historical weight. The inn occupies site of legendary historical events, with Tiber Septim supposedly having slept there. The historical weight creates tourism, but also burden, as the inn's identity becomes tied to past rather than present. The location represents how history shapes communities, creating pride but also preventing them from developing independent identities. The inn shows how historical significance can be both blessing and curse, attracting visitors while trapping the location in amber of past glory. Stonehill's company town dynamics. The mining settlement is entirely owned and operated by Rockwallow Mines owners, creating Company Town where residents' entire lives depend on corporate goodwill. The dynamics represent extractive capitalism at its most controlling, where companies own not just workplaces, but housing, stores, and all infrastructure. Workers can't leave without losing everything, creating effective economic imprisonment. The settlement shows how capitalism can replicate feudalism when corporate power becomes total, with workers depending on employers for survival, just as serfs depended on lords. Laureus Farm's Cicero encounter. The farm's interaction with Cicero creates crisis that reveals the farmer's character and moral priorities. His decision about helping or reporting Cicero reflects broader questions about obligation to strangers, law versus compassion, and self-preservation versus principle. The encounter represents moral tests that ordinary people face, situations where there's no clearly right answer. The farmer's choice shapes his future, showing how single decisions in crisis moments can determine life trajectories. The encounter proves that heroism and villainy aren't limited to great figures, but occur in everyday situations faced by common people. Salvius Farm's expansion dreams. The farm's owner dreams of expansion and prosperity that economic realities make unlikely. His ambitions represent hope that keeps people working despite odds against success. The gap between dreams and reality creates tension, as maintaining motivation requires ignoring pessimistic analysis of actual chances. The farm represents millions of small businesses and farms throughout history where owners' hopes exceeded realistic possibilities. The expansion dreams show how optimism functions as survival mechanism, allowing people to continue striving even when objective analysis would suggest accepting limitations. Hollyfrost Farm's quiet desperation. The farm operates in shadow of Windhelm's walls, with owners working endlessly to maintain marginal operation. Their situation represents invisible poverty of working poor, who don't starve but never achieve security. they're one bad harvest away from disaster, living with constant low-level anxiety about survival. The farm shows how economic precarity dominates lives, with fear of failure preventing joy in present moment. Their quiet desperation represents emotional cost of economic insecurity, demonstrating that poverty isn't just material deprivation, but psychological burden. Brandy Mug Farm's humble success. The farm operates successfully through modest ambitions and careful management, representing sustainable approach to agriculture. The owners don't seek wealth or expansion but stable sufficiency, accepting limitations in exchange for security. Their approach represents wisdom of modest goals, showing that success can mean meeting needs rather than exceeding them. The farm proves that not everyone dreams of greatness, that many people seek stability rather than glory. Their humble success questions whether ambition is always virtue, suggesting that contentment with enough might be wiser than endless pursuit of more. Chilfro Farm's battle-born connection. The farm's ties to prominent White-run family provide economic advantages through political connections and preferential treatment. Their success stems partly from merit, but also from privilege, showing how social position shapes outcomes regardless of individual effort. The farm represents how inequality perpetuates across generations, with connected families maintaining advantages that unconnected families can't access. Their situation proves that success requires both capability and opportunity, with the latter often depending on accidents of birth rather than achievement. Pelagia Farm's exploitation. The farm employs workers at wages that barely sustain them, extracting maximum labor for minimum compensation. The exploitation is legal but unethical, representing how laws often permit practices that morality would condemn. The farm's profitability depends on keeping workers desperate enough to accept unfair conditions. The situation shows capitalism's tendency toward exploitation when workers lack bargaining power, creating systems where labor enriches owners while leaving workers impoverished. The farm represents countless agricultural operations throughout history, built on exploitation dressed as honest employment. Battle-born Farm's political liability. The farm's association with prominent political family makes it target during Civil War tensions. Political violence that couldn't safely target battle-borns directly instead targets their property and employees. The farm becomes proxy battlefield for political conflicts, with workers suffering for employers' political positions. The situation represents how political violence affects ordinary people who happen to work for controversial figures, showing that politics isn't abstract, but has concrete consequences for vulnerable people. The farm proves that Civil War's casualties extend beyond soldiers to include anyone connected to partisan figures.